So getting into this video, I want to talk about why Season 5 of DanMachi will be the best season for DanMachi. Now, Season 4 was absolute phenomenal, covering, of course, volumes 12, 13, and 14. It gave a large, good chunk of episodes to cover those volumes in the best way possible, making sure to go into as much detail and the meat and potato of those volumes. And there was definitely some criticisms for that it went into too much detail, that it was too slow-paced, but I definitely feel like DanMachi Season 4 did a great job at making sure it stuck to the core components of the story, and I have a lot of faith that they will do the same for Season 5 if and when that does happen. But to be very clear here, I don't think Volume 15 will be covered unless they decide to make a sort of an early part 2 when they get into the next arc, sort of compiling all those short stories, because Volume 15 is just short stories itself, and that is something that the DanMachi anime has not really done at all, which is definitely disappointing because some of the side story stuff are really good and it does add a lot of character development and just world building as well. But I get the sneaking suspicion they probably won't, and they'll just stick to the main core components of the story. And so that would be, of course, volumes 16, 17, and 18, because that is a nice compressed arc, as I like to call it, the Great Faction War. Now, of course, I will be going into some spoilers, not complete deep dive into the spoilers, because of course I don't want to spoil everything for everyone. But if you do want full spoilers, there are of course the playlists in the description down below where you can get into the light novel breakdowns, the character analysis breakdowns, going into full detail about what happens with the characters, what happens in each of the volumes, and of course explaining and analyzing all of those juicy details. So if you want all that, definitely check that out after the end of this video. But Season 5, I think, is going to be absolute phenomenal. I loved Season 4, but Season 5 is an arc that I really loved because it really stirs the pot. It really just puts the stakes to the next level and really pushes not just Belle, but also other familiar members, and not just within Hestia's familiar, but also outside of that as well. And a certain elf that is very prevalent in Season 4 will continue to be very prevalent into Season 5 as well, and building the relationship between Belle and her. But of course it also does have eyes in there as well, with of course other cast of characters. But I like to call it the Great Faction War, and the reason for that is because you finally see Freya unleash her powers, because she basically just gives up trying. Now, of course, there are some major revelations that do happen in Volume 16, which is, of course, Sia's date, and where there's the Goddess Festival, and Belle and Sia go on a lovely smoochy date, and Sia ends up basically telling Belle how she feels, and Belle, of course, gives a response as I think most of us would expect, which sadly is a rejection. And she does not take this particularly well because, of course, as some may know, Sia isn't quite who she seems to be. She has a dual identity, and as you would guess, drumroll, it is in fact Freya. Freya is Sia. Now, for those, most people actually already knew this well before the light novels came out, not just because of the hints, but it is actually in the actual mythology for what this story is kind of based on. And that mythology basically goes over how Freya had a dual identity like Sia. So a lot of people already guessed that, and it does go into the mindset of Freya and Sia and why she thinks and feels the way she does. And that's why I ended up making one of the videos called Freya, a Broken and Lost Woman, because it really delves into how she thinks and feels and why she is the way she is. Now, of course, at the end of that date, things get very, very, very serious. She ends up deciding to just basically say, nope, I'm going to take things into my own hands, and ends up brainwashing an entire city. And the only person she can't brainwash is, in fact, of course, Hestia, because she is the goddess. She is one of the virgin goddesses, so she's very much got some power that sadly Freya does not have. But Freya can, in fact, actually change the memories and brainwash other gods and goddesses, but Hestia is one of those that is immune to it, along with a couple of other goddesses, but those aren't in the story. They're part of the actual the heavens kind of thing, so don't need to talk about them because they're not relevant. So of course that leads to a journey for Belle and Hestia, and of course there is some other stuff that goes on that leads into basically Belle being confined to basically being Freya's familiar member, but is not. And you'll find out about that when season 5 does happen. But basically, Bell is in this dilemma where he is living a new life where he's got memories of his past life, being told that those are all just made up, and it's this internal dilemma that Bell is having. His past life that he believes is real, that's been told by everyone, even including his own past familiar members, because again, they've been brainwashed, except Hestia, but Hestia has been told to zip it. You'll find out in the actual story. And that just leads into this where Bell feels hopeless, lost, beaten down, and Freya definitely is not merciful when it comes to trying to persuade Bell and break him down to the point where he finally gives up and gives himself to her. And this just shows her desperation and how far she's willing to go. It's very much one of those where I feel like we're going to see a lot of people really, really dislike Freya because of what she does. And that is where Bell ends up trying to break free, because certain events play out where he ends up having a conversation with a certain individual named Eyes, and that is where he realizes it was all fake, and he basically approaches Freya and says, I know the truth, and things get quite crazy. And of course there's a certain elf girl that is very prevalent throughout season 4, where the relationship between Bell and of course her grow tremendously. She also plays a pivotal role in that season, so of course that's why I think a lot of people really will love season 5, because a lot of people fell in love with her in season 4, and people are going to continue to love her in season 5 because she plays a major role in the faction war. And let's just say she definitely really gets a big power up when it comes to the actual faction war between Freya and Hestia's familiar. Now, the reason why I say faction war and not familiar war, because it is multiple familiars versus Freya, and that's basically at the end of volume 17 where Bell approaches Freya, so does Hestia. There's some major events that happen, but again, as I said, I wasn't going to spoil everything. Check the description for those videos. And they basically come to an agreement where there will be, in fact, a faction war. And that is where things really, really heat up. Now, I'm not going to tell you what happens at the end of it. If you want to know, check the videos. But I think this is one of those where people will be on the edge of their seats, really excited and just absolutely loving the story itself and how it plays out, what's at stake, and who grows, who rises to the top, who really shows their potential, and just the back and forth between it and just how things end up playing out. I think personally is going to be one of those seasons that is going to be absolute phenomenal. I think it's going to be the best season so far, and if they take the attention to detail that they did with season 4, with season 5, I think it will absolutely be the best so far. As far as after that, well, we just have to wait and see, but there has been talk that the author has another volume planned for this year, because we did just get volume 18 this year. It is a Japanese release, not in the West right now, for those that are asking, and the author has hinted and indicated that there could be a volume 19 coming out later this year as well, so that would be very exciting if the author does pick up the pace when it comes to the main storyline stuff. And I do hope there is other side story seasons or stuff that goes into some of the other backstories and all that, because there's some really good stories that I think people will really like that go into backstories for certain other characters, certain elf, certain eyes, that kind of stuff. There is a lot of great stuff for anime only fans to consume. So this is why I think season 5 is going to be the best. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. As much as I would love to see volume 15 in the anime, I just don't think that's going to happen. They're very much known for not doing side story stuff, but at the same time, with how they've done things with season 4, maybe they might break that trend and actually cover the side stories, but we just have to wait and see what entails. But I definitely think season 5 will be absolute phenomenal, and I think anime fans will really dig it. But of course, some people will really, really hate Freya for what she does, but that is what makes the story so irresistible and fun. So again, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts? Again, check out the description for the playlist for all the extra deep dives, analysis, and explain videos. And of course, if you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.